I always believe that we all have different gifts that we carry, right? And I was just having lunch, and I was sitting there at a table, and I'm a high I. Like, when I say I'm a high I on the DISC assessment, like, I love people. Like, I just adore people. I think people have so much insight, experience, just things that they can educate you on. All that stuff is invaluable to me. And my network is off the charts. And I want to say it because I think it's important. People don't realize, you know, we're talking about everything that's happening with the artificial intelligence. Don't get me wrong. It's very important. But on the other side of that, what we do with artificial intelligence and how we move past it and how we grow from it is key, because everybody is paying attention to how we're going to respond to it. So I want to say two things that resonate with me. Give you a little history so you get a better feel. I'm a first-generation college student. Okay, I need you to understand I'm from Ypsilanti, Michigan. Nobody in my family went to college. Undergrad, psychology, MBA, human resource management. I want to say this because I think it's super important. I ended up getting recruited to play basketball at Michigan State. but I didn't go to Michigan State. I want to tell you this. So my head coach was a guy by the name of Herb Williams. He was under Judd Heathcote at Michigan State. He got the job at Idaho State. Okay, stay with me, stay with me. I'm a first-generation college student, really wasn't sure, didn't know anything about going to college, grants, any of that stuff. And as soon as they came to my house, you already could tell, I was signing my letter of intent. So I went to Idaho State, played at Idaho State, won the championship, won the conference, was one of the captains. Big deal for me, because I want to tell you how important relationships are, and we're going to keep going as we have this conversation. We won the conference, okay? Stay with me. I'm talking to my head coach at the end of my junior season, all of the staff. I said, once I get my degree, I would like to try to get in the NBA. I could play, so I'm not just making it up. I can play a little bit. And then I said, if I don't make it in the NBA, I want to go overseas, okay? Stay with me. No disrespect to him. I didn't understand the political side of athletics until they looked at each other and said, we don't think you can do it. Now, you know that impacted me at a high level. And I'm a high I. You already could tell how I'm moving. Like you can't tell me that you don't believe in my vision and what I have inside of me. So I transferred. I went to Huron University in South Dakota. Went there, ended up getting in the best shape of my life. I'm talking about like in great shape. Taking care of my diet, doing everything. Ended up leading the country in three-point percentage. Ended up playing back in the day, before everybody was going to Vegas for the Pro-Am League, it was in L.A. at the Pyramid at Long Beach. And I got a chance to guard Kobe Bryant, Lamar Murray. Like, I played against some of the best, and I was top 25 in scoring. So when I went through that process, because I want to tell you this, how important it is to go through the process, I realized I didn't need anybody else's validation to tell me what I could do. So I got my first contract in Taipei, Taiwan, went on a tour in Japan, spent 4 years in Australia, South Australia, and was the MVP. So I'm telling you this for a reason. And it's super important as we start to talk about the leadership model. I ended up leaving because at the time, 9/11 happened. So I retired from playing basketball and became a college head coach. And I want to say this because I think it's super important. I'm the first African-American coach at Treasure Valley Community College in the history of the school. 2001 is when I became the head coach. Now, I want to tell you this because it's super important. They thought I was going to show up and I was going to fail, which makes me laugh because you don't control what's inside of me. So I went out and got some guys who could play. We went to the Final Four. People went to Portland State, UNLV, Cal State Fullerton, So those are the players that I recruited that went on to continue their career. Then I ended up getting a job after my college career with the Idaho Stampede. And I want to say this because it's super important. That's the league below the NBA where they prepare players to go to the league. We won the Western Division. Then the next year, we won the whole thing. And I was a big part of that. And I say that because what I want to share with you now is really about how do you leverage your leadership gifts and what does that look like? So, and I'm an acronym guy. So if you want to take notes, feel free, because I want you to really take this information and process it. So let's go to the next slide if we can. You know what I'm going to do? Let's just cut it off and I'll just talk to the audience if that's okay. I'm going to start off with the word, we're talking about the word leadership. I'm going to start off with the word L, which is loyalty. Now, I know people think, man, why is loyalty super important? Well, think about it like this. If me and you have a relationship and all you doing is pouring into me and I never give anything back to you, that's going to create some issues. And so when we talk about how we impact the next generation, we need to be modeling how loyalty looks. We have to understand, like, that's super important. So at the end of the day, it's not what we say. And somebody said it earlier. It's really about what we do because people are watching everything that we do, especially our youth. The other piece of the puzzle, I'm going to use the E. And I always say this. It's energy. See, people don't understand, like, you know, I always be laughing to myself when people be driving and they be getting upset and give me the finger and all that stuff. And I'm thinking, why are you so upset? like the world's really not that serious. Like the energy that you carry, and I want to say this because people don't really understand this, the energy that you carry, you can transfer that to somebody else just by how you treat them. So you got to be careful who you allow into your space. And that's super important. It's a big deal. And I always say, like, I was in Detroit yesterday. I had the keynote, and I was talking about changing the narrative. And it was a men's keynote. And I got a chance to really talk to men about the reality is, you know, how you show up, how you carry yourself, and the energy that you bring to the table is really a reflection of you. Think about that. Think about what I'm saying. Everybody thinks that it's you pointing the finger at somebody else, but it's really you pointing the thumb at yourself is really what it is. And we got to be honest about it, and we got to be transparent and accept it for what it is, and then accept it and then man up and move in the right space, if I'm making sense. Now, I'm going to go to the next acronym, which is the A. Accountability. Man, how important is accountability? I mean, people always think like, and people always think it's just about negative stuff. Accountability is also about when you do really good stuff. And I was saying this, even when we had lunch, in my conversations, I was challenging people to be careful what you say to yourself. Because what you say to yourself will impact how you continue to move. So you got to remember, everything that you pour into yourself, and I always tell people this because I mentor all over the country, I'm always going to be with myself. Stay with me. I'm not leaving at any point. So if I'm always going to be with myself, if I'm telling myself negative self-talk, negative self-image, I don't believe I can do it, I don't believe it can happen, well, guess what? That's what you're going to get. And so you got to be willing to accept it for what it is and then be strong enough and be willing enough to change what you're pouring into yourself. Now that is a challenge because that means that you got to go back and really accept the good, the bad, the unfortunate, and all the traumatic things that happen to you. Go back through that same pain and then change the messaging so that you're pouring positive stuff into your spirit. The D, discipline. I don't care what anybody says. And you probably could tell from that video. I did that in 2012. I probably lost 50 pounds since then. I say this because sometimes, and people always question this, you know, we have this idea of how we look when we see ourselves in the mirror. And then when somebody takes a photo of you and then you see that photo, you're like, that's not me. Like, that's not how I look. And see, the problem is we're not being transparent with ourselves and accepting the reality of what it is. And that requires you to be mature and strong enough and then be willing to take it so that you can get better. See, that's the other piece of it. The other E is empowerment. And I don't care what anybody says. And I'll say this. I've been the leader my entire life. And so I already understand leadership really isn't about me. It's about what can I do to help the people around me become a better version of themselves, because everybody doesn't have that leadership quality. And just accept it for what it is. There's no disrespect. It's just like we all have different gifts that we've been given. Just accept it for what it is. And so for me, I always say, okay, what can I do to help things become better? The R, respect. And I don't care what anybody says. And this is a big deal. People always want to be respected, especially where I'm from. I'm from Detroit. Like, everybody trying to pretend like they the hardest dude in the world and this and that. And I'm saying, look. For you to get respect, you have to give it. Ain't nobody just giving you respect. Like if you will carry yourself, communicate effectively, make sure you represent yourself well, and make sure that when you communicate your ideas, we can consume it. Yeah, we can have real conversations, but if that's not how you're carrying yourself, then guess what it's going to do? It's going to create a barrier, which is a big deal, right? And then all of a sudden, you looking at me crazy and I'm looking at you crazy, and we kind of like, all right, and then we kind of let it ride. And so I always say, respect is about giving respect to receive respect, and then, if I'm making sense, and then doing it on the other side of that. So this other piece, which resonated really heavy with me, is service. And people don't understand, like a lot of times, we get so caught up in what's in it for me. How am I going to benefit? What's the value? How about just doing it because it's the right thing to do? Have people forgot that exists? What about the moral compass that we used to have? So all those things become super important. The H, and I want to say this because it really resonates with me. One of my mentors is Dale Brown from LSU, Hall of Fame coach. We talk all the time. And one of the things he said to me, he said, honesty, Derrick, is simple. The truth is the truth. I need you to think about that, because sometimes, even when we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings or we're too concerned about how they're going to feel, we will move around the truth to negotiate so that we can make sure everybody, like, just, it is what it is, accept it, no disrespect, and then let's figure out solutions so we can move past it, if that makes sense. Super important. The I is integrity. And everybody knows integrity really, for me, is really when nobody's around, what you gonna do, right? Like how you gonna move when nobody can see the end result. And that's a big deal. And now I'm gonna shift gears, because now I'm about to share some stuff that's really about to get you excited. So the last acronym is perseverance. And perseverance is something that I had to use to overcome the challenges that I'm getting ready to share with you. So I need you to stay with me for a second. because now I'm about to really trip you out. So I ended up being one of the top coaches in the Pacific Northwest, did the bike ride across the country, speaking all over the U.S., Australia, UK. I was everywhere, and then I got sick. When I say I got sick. And when I say should have passed away on at least 7 occasions, so I'm going to give you a quick history so you can wrap your mind around it so you know I'm not speaking just randomly. Brain aneurysm, cellulitis, 2 strokes. I want to talk about the strokes for a second. I couldn't speak for 6 weeks, couldn't make a sound. I had aphasia on my brain, couldn't communicate, wasn't making any sense, was talking just, I want to say this because it's super important, because this is going to resonate with you guys. I have a defibrillator in my chest, right here. Oh, yeah. Hold on. There's more. There's more. Heart surgery. Atrial fibrillation. Went in through my rib cage, depleted my lungs, cauterized the inside of my heart. I know, but I'm going to get to that. Now, you got to remember, I'm going through all this stuff, and I'm trying to ask myself, I know I've been living a pretty good life. Like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? Like what's happening with me right now? Back surgery. L1, L5. Sat in a reclining chair for 3 months. Couldn't move. Taking pain pills because I couldn't move my leg. My family actually went on vacation and left me in the chair for 4 days, and I had suicide ideation. I was about to call it a day. I just got to a point where it was so challenging for me that I didn't realize, like, my life is going through so much. Why is this happening? I want to tell you the story because it's important, and it's helping me heal right now. So I want to make sure I communicate this. I'm sitting in the chair, and it's during COVID, calling on my cell phone to get food, having them come in. Remember, everybody's dropping the food off. I was having them come into my house, bring the food to me, etc. But I had a 380 in the side of my chair, a gun, a little handgun. And I remember with the 380, sitting it on my lap, and I'm pretty spiritual, as you can imagine, so I really want you to understand how important this is for me. And I had the gun right close to my mouth, and but before anything happened, I said a prayer. I got to tell you this because this is important for me. And I asked God, I said, God, is this how my story ends? And he said, no, I have so much more for you. So I'm pretty faithful, as you can tell. I did the bike ride across the country, so I put the gun down, sat in the chair, waited for my family to come back, and kept on going. Blood clots, COVID-19, yet I'm still here. And so I say this for 2 reasons. I was here for the Super Bowl. I spoke to 3 schools here in Vegas. I was in Indianapolis for the NBA All-Star Weekend. I spoke at a camp, went to one of the top breakfasts ever, John Wooden's breakfast, got a chance to spend time with that entire network. And then I'm going to be in Paris for the Olympics, working with, right, this is going to sound crazy. So I always say, like, people don't understand, sometimes you may not have the answer, but you got to give it to somebody who has the answer. And so for me, I gave it to God. That's who I serve. But on the other side of that, there's no question that he's delivering. So I'll be in Paris for 10 days, doing basketball camps throughout Paris, working with the Sexting organization as well. I have a relationship with USA Basketball Foundation, who actually remembered me from Michigan. She went to Detroit Country Day. She's the executive director for the foundation. So my point is, like, when I was going through all of those challenges that I just shared with you, and I want to make sure I tell you guys this, because I want to give you something with this message. I want you to take something from what I'm telling you. Even though I got depressed, even though I got down, even though I kept trying to figure out solutions, I always told myself that I was going to get better and I was going to recover. And so whatever you're telling yourself, and if you look at me right now, and I was saying this earlier, if you look at me right now, you don't see any of that. And I know you don't, because he has brought me back to where I was supposed to be a long time ago. And I'm sharing it because I want you guys to remember, whatever you're telling yourself will materialize and it will manifest. So whatever you say has to be on point and it has to make you move in the right direction. To be honest, you're probably going to see a lot more of me, is what I'm saying. And I say that in humility, but in truth, because I already know what's getting ready to happen. So I appreciate you guys giving me this opportunity to share with you. Hopefully, if you have any questions, please feel free. And if you want to ask me anything, this would be a great time to do it. Okay. Okay. Oh, okay, okay. Here you go.
Oh, he needs it back though, right? Okay. If you could talk to your younger self, long before any of the extraordinary story of your life, in hindsight, what would you say to your younger self?
I would say two things. I would say first that,
They need to hear you on the mic.
No, that's good. That's good. Thank you. I would say two things. I would say, first, be careful what you are pouring into yourself. And then remember, we're not on, a lot of times you could tell by my faith, I'm pretty faithful. God has his own timeline on how it's going to unfold. So even though I wanted to unfold a long time ago, it wasn't time for it to unfold. So just understand that there's a process to everything. So that's what I would say. That's what I would say. Oh, okay. All right.
You were mentioning the positive self-talk. That reminds me a lot of the 4 agreements. What you say to yourself, okay? In, I would say, education or healthcare, either you're a patient or you're a student. And we've been talking about mental health equity. So what would you say to someone who's young, right? And they're going through it. And it's hard for them to, especially when they're young, they don't have that experience.
Right.
How would you help them grasp that concept of positive self-talk when they're hurting so badly?
Man.
How would you address that?
First, I appreciate that question. That's a great question. So I've already experienced that, just so you know. Give you some history. I mentor at Eastern Lansing Fieldhouse. They have 150 young people show up from 3 different high schools. So they're all coming. And part of it is, a lot of these kids already have traumatic events that they're dealing with. And so that's a big deal first. So we kind of have to get them to understand, like, even if whatever you're dealing with, whatever trauma, whatever you're facing, whatever is unfolding, it really isn't a reflection of how you're going to move forward. And that's what I've been telling. I got a couple people already who are going through it, and we've had conversations about it. And I said, for me, I just want you to know, and this has been the biggest thing that I've been able to do, that you can trust me. And so I was vulnerable enough to open myself up to these kids, and the kids are like, that's my guy now. So if anything happens, they not going to the director or nothing. They coming to me and saying, look, this is what's going on, and do you have any solutions? And then we can talk about resources we could connect you with. So that's what I would say. Like, we really have to make sure that the people know that you care about them and that you have their best interests at heart and that you don't want anything other than to help them, and people will respond to that. And I'm a firm believer that sometimes, people will know how you made them feel. And so the people who I'm talking to, I promise you, and I want to make sure I say this too, because one of my friends, I'll give you guys some history, I did the Keynote at National PAL, the Police Activities League, and one of my friends had me come to Kentucky, spoke, they gave me the key to the city, the mayor gave me the key to the city, and one of their PAL participants, I got to tell you this, went through PAL, high school football player, college, freshman year of this year, committed suicide. I know. And so they reached out to me and said, we need you to come talk to the students, because the students are hurt, but then the adults are hurt because there's a connection with that young person. And so we have to understand, and I say this in no disrespect to AI, like, I think it's a gift and a curse on both sides. But on the other side, we still got to love people and take care of people, because I don't care what anybody says. At the end of the day, we are all humans, period. Sorry, you already know I will go.
It's a short question. As you were speaking, actually, my cousin, who was 24, committed suicide years ago. And it was a shock to our entire family because we didn't know what was wrong, why, what was the problem. He was away in college. And so as you're speaking, my question is, what would you say to the young men that are looking for opportunities and they're not being able to have the access or don't have the knowledge or the role models around them? How do they find you, or what can we do to be more accessible to them?
Great. That's another great question. And so I think twofold. I mean, obviously, and I say this all the time, there are people in your community who are willing to pour into you. They want to find ways to connect, serve, connect the dots. But the reality is, and I understand what you're saying, because remember, I want to make sure I communicate this. I just spoke at a men's conference, and we talked about changing the narrative in the black community. And I had the keynote. Like it wasn't like, let's be friends. It was a challenge for us to figure out what do we need to do so that we can figure out ways to support each other, build relationships, and then stop this hateration stuff. I don't know who came up with that, but that's the worst of all things in this cancel culture. I don't know who came up with that stuff. But all I'm saying is that's not how you build community. It's never been that way. And so let's not adopt something that will take us down a path that will lead us nowhere. So my point is this. There are people who are accessible, and you guys have to find ways to leverage those people. And I want to say this, and then I'm going to get off the mic. Even since I've been here, the relationships and the people that are here are playmakers. And I say that in a positive way, meaning we're not talking about what we can't do. We're talking about, okay, what can we do, and then how do we bring, like, those are the people that you want to be around. And so when I talk about energy plays a role. So if people got excuses, then you got to say, you may not be the person that I need to work with. I need to find people who have the ability to find solutions so we can go in a positive direction, if I'm making sense. And that's super important. And I'm telling you, this conference has been a blessing because these are the people I want to be around. And I already know. So, thank you very much. I appreciate it.